The whisper of the mines. I don't often get invited to places where the air smells of sand, rust, and money. Jefferson Hills was exactly that kind of town. A small mining community in the Southwest where the asphalt melts by 10 in the morning and the bartender knows every local's name and their secrets, especially their secrets. Max and I rolled in at dawn. He was, as usual, groggy and skeptical. I had a cup of stale gas station coffee in hand, its bitterness matching my mood as I braced myself to dig into someone else's skeletons again. "You sure this is worth it?" Max asked as we stepped out of the car. "Officially, there's not even a crime here. If I waited for a body with a kill me sign every time, we'd still be stuck in the archives, Max." He sighed, his gaze catching on an old building across the street. Above the entrance hung a faded sign, Henderson Mining Company Est, 1954, gold, or what was left of it. Walter Henderson, a billionaire with dirt under his nails and a past as a miner, had died 2 nights ago. Official cause of death, heart attack. But a neighbor, a Mrs. Mabel Brooks, claimed he'd been murdered. The police ignored her. We didn't. Henderson lived in a mansion on the edge of town, a former administrative building that had long ceased to be just a house. Security guards, cameras, gates, everything you'd expect if you were an aging paranoiac with bags of cash and a rotten reputation, or if you held a map to a lost mine that was, according to rumors, cursed. When the guard opened the gate, he looked at us like we were tabloid reporters sniffing for a scoop. I flashed my IDAN a bit of charm. "Alex Riley, private investigator. This is my partner, Officer Max. We're here at Mrs. Brooks's request." He muttered something about that old hag and her fantasies, but let us through. Guess he figured we'd keep her quiet. Henderson's house was eerily silent. No dogs, no hum of machinery, just heat and dust. We were met by his son, Garrett. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of guy who's used to being listened to. "You're wasting your time," he said, not bothering to invite us inside. "Dad had heart problems. It was natural. I don't get why anyone's poking around." "Don't you want to be sure it was natural?" Max asked gently. Garrett eyed us, weighing whether we were worth his time. Then he shrugged and opened the door. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and aged leather. The walls were lined with photos of mines, men in hard hats, and Walter Henderson through the years, from a young man with a pickaxe to an old one with a glass of whiskey. Garrett led us to the study. A large desk, a safe, a fireplace, an old-fashioned globe. I noticed a book lying apart from the others. The History of Gold Veins in North America. "Did your dad ever show anyone a map?" I asked. "That's nonsense. Sure, he had his theories, but..." He hesitated, and that caught my attention. He was getting old. His memory was slipping. Kept saying he found an old mine back in the day, but couldn't tell anyone. Why not? Because he believed it was cursed. Seriously. He even wrote that in some kind of diary, like a will. I haven't found it yet. Maybe it's crazy, maybe not. I nodded. Max scribbled in his notebook, though he usually does that to distract himself from awkward silences. "When did you last see him?" 3 days ago. He was in a good mood, even planning to have someone over. I left, and the next day got the call. He was gone. "Who found the body?" "The housekeeper. She quit right after. Said she got spooked. Now she's off the grid." "Convenient," Max muttered. Garrett gave a curt nod. When we stepped outside, the sun was already scorching. Max grabbed a water bottle and leaned against the car hood. Honest, Alex, this is all just legends. Curses, maps, mindset sounds like a movie. And what kills people more often? Max a gun or a legend they believe in? Well said. Scarily well said. I smirked, then pulled out my phone and dialed Mrs. Brooks. She lived next door to the mansion, in a house with a porch and a rocking chair. She greeted us in an apron, her face etched with distrust for the world. I knew they'd kill him, she said. He told me he'd found gold. Said straight to my face, Mabel, if I did, won't be my heart. Who visited him? I asked. The day before he died, a man in glasses and a hat. Not from around here. Left after an hour. Later, he was arguing with someone on the phone. I heard through the window, a woman's voice shrill. A journalist? Max suggested. Maybe. Or worse. I asked if she'd ever seen anyone with the map. Mabel shook her head, then froze. Although I once saw him poking around in the fireplace, hiding something behind a brick. We returned to the mansion that evening, after the guards had changed shifts. Garrett was gone. We worked the new guard quickly, a bit of charm, a bit of cash, and a lot of Max suddenly talking like a prosecutor. I slipped off my gloves and reached into the fireplace. Found it, an old box, a yellowed envelope, inside a piece of a map, not the whole thing, just a fragment, marked shaft number 17, closed 1972, entrance hazardous, and a note, shaky handwriting but legible. If you're reading this, I'm gone. The mine is real, but it will only bring death. Let it burn with me. Signed, Witch. Max reread it silently, then said, You think someone found this before us? I think we're officially not on vacation anymore. I stepped outside. The first stars were lighting up over the town, but the air still felt thick, like spilled oil. The heat wouldn't let up. Nor would the feeling that this mine had already burned someone to ash. The next morning, we ate breakfast at a local diner. I had eggs and bacon. Max poked at a pancake like it might hold evidence. Outside of dust, an old Chevy, and a woman in a cowboy hat smoking by a mailbox. The town lived its rusty life. You know what's bugging me? I said, eyes on my mug. That your coffee's more chemical than a lab? Henderson didn't trust anyone. If he hid the map, there's another piece somewhere. And someone knows about it. Maybe they've already found it. Max nodded thoughtfully. You think the journalist or the guy in glasses? Or both. Look, Max, when it comes to gold, people lose their minds. We've already got a missing map, a terrified housekeeper, and an old man who warned he'd be killed. I'd say we've got ourselves a case. Just without a body, evidence, or suspects. No big deal, Max snorted. I pulled out my phone. Cell service in this town was spotty, but I got through to one of my contacts in the private licensing database. Half an hour later, he sent me a list of journalists who'd entered the county in the past 10 days. A name popped up immediately. Cora Blaine, freelancer, writes about lost stories of America. A pseudonym, obviously. I'd use one too if I were out to steal someone's treasure. We tracked her down at the Red Cactus Motel, just off the highway. She opened the door in a white shirt and jeans, a pyrite pendant hanging around her neck, blonde hair, eyes gray as fresh steel. You're Alex Riley, she said, not a hint of surprise. And this must be Max, the cop. I've read about you. You're a journalist. Or a treasure hunter. Both. Sometimes I write, sometimes I hunt, sometimes I write to hunt. You were at Henderson's before he died, Max said. What were you looking for? She didn't bother lying. The truth. I came across an old recording from the 80s. Henderson's voice, talking about shaft number 17. I came to interview him. He brushed me off at first, but a day later he called me back. Why? Said he'd changed his mind. Wanted someone to know the truth. He was odd, on edge. Kept talking about a curse. Said his son couldn't be trusted. I recorded the conversation. Can we hear it? I asked. She played the audio, Henderson's voice gravelly, like an old radio. If you record this, maybe someone will believe me. I'm not crazy. Down in that mine, I haven't been there since 1972. I saw things. People disappeared. First Jim, then Bill. I got out. But the gold stayed. And now it feels like it's pulling the dead along with it. The recording cut off. Who's Jim? Max asked. I looked into it. James Collins, a worker, went missing in 1972. Officially an accident, but they never found the body. I studied her. You said he changed his mind. Then he died. What else did he tell you? That the map was split in two. One part was with him, the other with... She trailed off. With who? I don't know. He wouldn't say. Just hinted it was someone he once trusted, now hates. Max let out a low whistle. This is starting to sound like a family drama with a side of treasure hunting. That evening we went back to Mabel. She was on her porch, watering plants. You ever hear of shaft number 17? Max asked, skipping pleasantries. No one's been there in decades, she said. The entrance collapsed. Henderson always said it breathed, like something lived inside. I thought he was just drunk. Who else knew about the map? She shrugged. Only one person visited him a lot these past few months, Joe Tillman. Old friend, former miner, lives out by the dry creek in a trailer. We found Joe's trailer easily. But Joe wasn't answering. The door was ajar. Inside, it smelled of smoke and something agrochemical. Max drew his gun. Alex, something's off. I pushed the door open. The place was a mess, like someone had torn through it, not caring about the noise, and on the floor body, a man, his face covered in burns, eyes open, dead for hours. He was holding something, Max said, crouching. Burned paper? Part of the map? I stepped over to the table. Amid the clutter and cigarette butts, a mug, white residue at the bottom. I touched itacoline dust. Poison? This is murder, Max said, not looking at me. Of course, and it won't be the last. On the wall nearby, a boot print like someone had kicked the door, and by the stove, a thin piece of plastic. I picked it up. Access card, private security, initial G. Garrett? Max raised an eyebrow. Maybe. Or someone using his card. We need to check. We stepped outside. The sky had darkened. The hum of the tone even, a small one like Jefferson Hills, faded. All that remained was silence. And a dead man in a trailer, clutching a torn piece of a map. Now the killer has almost the whole map, I said. Just one piece left, and us. Max stared into the darkness. You think this is all about the gold? I shrugged. Sometimes people kill for money. Sometimes to keep others from finding what they've lost. We need to figure out what this mine is really about. The next day, we got a report from the lab. Traces of digoxin in Joe Tillman's mug. A cardiac poison. Quiet, clean, no mess. Perfect for a natural death. Max slid a photo across to me. A security camera at the motel. The night before Joe's death, a woman in a hat visited him. The same journalist. Cora Blaine. I cursed under my breath. She seemed so genuine. This would be too easy. Or too smart, Max said. Time to find out who she really is. When people start dying in a town, no one even remembered yesterday. I get twitchy. Not because it's rare, because it usually means someone's working hard to keep us in the dark. And we were about to shine a light. Max and I stood outside Joel Tillman's trailer, the wind stirring the dry dust at our feet like it was whispering. No turning back. I held the photo from the camera, a woman in a hat, face obscured, but her gait, her silhouette, the details all pointed to Cora Blaine. Our journalist had lied. Either she came to Tillman that night and he died after, or she didn't and someone wanted us to think she did. What's the plan? Max asked, lighting a cigarette. He always smokes when he knows we're in deep. 2 options, I said. 1, find Cora and lean on her. 2, find the mine. One of those paths will lead us to the killer. What if both do? Then we're just one step closer to a grave. Cora was gone. Checked out of the motel overnight, door left open. No belongings, no trace. Just a note, scribbled in a rush. I'm not guilty. They're after me. They're listening. Don't trust Garrett. He's lying. On the back, a pencil sketch. A circle, a cross, 3 lines. Max turned it over a few times. What is this, a map? Or a fragment of one? Maybe she found the second piece. I took the envelope and pieced together the map fragment from the fireplace with the one she'd sketched. They almost fit, but a final section was missing. The one that, rumor had it, marked the entrance. You think she's alive? If she's not an idiot, yeah. But Max, if she's really involved, she might be next. If not, she's just the next one in someone's way. That evening, we headed east of town. Old mining trails, abandoned rigs, tire tracks in the sand. The spot on the map was marked as number .17, the same shaft where, according to Henderson, it all began. We arrived as the sun dipped below the horizon. The orange-red light made the landscape look like Mars. Only instead of aliens, it was me, Max, and a rusted container tipped on its side at the base of a hill. This used to be a drilling site, Max said, looking around. See? Foundation remnants, an old cistern, and that sign. He pointed to a plaque half buried in the sand. I pulled it up. Danger, restricted area, cave, ends. Dated 1973. Convincing, I said. But we're not the type to follow rules. Especially you, Max muttered, switching on his flashlight. The mine entrance was behind a pile of debris. Someone had clearly tried to seal its stones, metal sheets, wire, but one section had been moved. Recently. Someone's been here, Max said, or they're still inside. We climbed in. The air smelled of damp earth, mold, and something metallic. The shaft was narrow like the neck of a bottle. Our flashlights cut through the dark but didn't dispel it. Sand crunched underfoot, protesting our intrusion. 20 yards in, we stumbled on the remnants of a camp. A flashlight, an empty water bottle, a tin can. Someone had been here for over an hour, and someone had left tracks clear, fresh. One person, average height. They came back out, so alive. Or dead. Just the legs kept walking. Max grumbled. I turned a corner and froze. Ahead was a drop, not just a PETA full-on abyss. Beneath it, darkness. But something glinted at the edge. Max reached it first. A chain. With a pendant. Pyrite. Cora, I breathed. On the wall nearby, someone had scrawled in charcoal. They're close. The mine isn't dead. Someone's losing it, Max said. Or their conscience is. We emerged as the sky turned black. Stars spilled out like bullets in a chamber. I sat on a rock and lit a cigarette. Max sat beside me, silent. For 5 minutes, we just stared into the desert. You know what scares me? He finally asked. What? That this mine might be real. That Henderson wasn't lying. That there's something alive down there. Or at least dangerous. I flicked my cigarette away. It's not a curse, Max. It's just people. Greedy, scared, and willing to do anything. The curse here is their choices. The next day, we returned to town. I decided to pay Garrett another visit. He met us on the porch in a fresh suit, smiling like he had everything under control. You're digging deeper than you need to, he said. The mine's just a myth. And Joe Tillman? He a myth too? Joe was old, sick, drank too much. Probably did it to himself. What about Cora Blaine? She vanished. After meeting you. He froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. She was weird, obsessed. I told her to stay away. She had issues. What kind? He shrugged. Mental ones. At least that's what Dad said. He banned her from coming around. Said she reminded him of a past that should stay buried. Interesting phrasing. Max stepped closer. You recognize this access card? He showed the fragment with the initial G. Garrett glanced at it and scoffed. Not mine. Looks like one the security team uses. I haven't carried one in years. And anyway, I inherited property, not delusions. I'm not chasing gold that might not even exist. I didn't buy it. But arguing was pointless. He knew something. Maybe he even knew where the third piece of the map was. Or he'd already burned it. We left and Max said, he's lying. Of course, but not about the right thing. Or maybe too much about the right thing. Now what? Now we check Henderson's laptop. Yeah, I hadn't mentioned this earlier. In Henderson's study, hidden among the old books was a laptop, password protected. But old guys don't usually get fancy with security. I guessed the password. The company's founding date, 1954. It worked. Files, videos, recordings. Among Themen labeled, Letter to Myself. We hit play. On the screen, Henderson. Elderly, gray eyes, sitting in front of the camera. If you're watching this, I'm dead. Someone got to me. Shaft number. 17 is real. There's gold down there, but it costs more than you think. It took people. Took a friend. I thought I could keep it secret. But it keeps coming up, like sand through your fingers. If you're after the truth, watch out for Garrett. He's not who he seems. He remembers what happened in 1972. He was there. He's still there, just in a different form. Max cursed. Damn. So he was in the mine? In 1972? He was 12. But he clearly remembers. And Henderson knew he did. Maybe even knew he was hiding something. I opened another video. Grainy footage. The mine. Screams. A shadow. Then Henderson's voice. He killed Jim. I couldn't stop it. We exchanged a look. Now we had more than hunches. We had a motive. A past Garrett was hiding behind suits and smiles. And a mind that might still hold the last piece of the truth. Or bodies. Max looked at me. Ready? Never. But that's never stopped us, has it? He smiled. For a moment, it felt like we were just two idiots playing Poirot and Hastings against the backdrop of dusty America. Then I remembered Cora's chain, Joe's body, the maps torn by time. And I knew, whatever was in that mine, we'd have to see it for ourselves. I've seen plenty in my line of work. Lies, panic, victim acts, and dramatic breakdowns. But there's one thing you can't mistake for anything else fear. Real, raw, unfiltered fear. The kind I saw in Cora's eyes when we found her, or rather, when she found us. It happened 2 days after we'd come back from the mine. Max and I were sitting in a cheap pizzeria, trading silence and suspicions when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, Alex Riley? A woman's voice. Hoarse, tense. Cora? Don't say my name. They're listening. I can meet, but on my terms. Tell me. Outside town, Old Cactus Haven, motel, room 3, half an hour, come alone. If I see a cop, I'm gone. I hung up and looked at Max. She's alive. Well, that's one piece of good news out of 3. The others? She's scared. Wants to meet? Without you? Classic. Next thing, they find you in a ditch with your throat slit and your phone in your hand. Then you'll finally get to say, I told you so. He grinned. I'm coming anyway. I'll stay outside. As usual. My shadow with a gun. The motel was worse than I expected. Run-down bungalows, a dusty office window, a flickering neon sign that read vacancy. For the 4th night in a row, I felt like I was living in a movie where the soundtrack was written with drums on my nerves. I walked up to room 3 and knocked. Softly. Twice. The door cracked open. A sliver of darkness. Then a voice. Alone? Alone. A click. The lock turned, and she let me in. Cora looked rougher than I remembered. Pale, hair, a mess, no makeup. She held a gun, pointed at the floor, but her finger hovered near the trigger. Don't come closer, she said. Wasn't planning to, just here to listen. She shut the door and backed against the wall, eyeing me like I was part of some conspiracy. Someone's after me. I can feel it. They know everything. Garrett, he's hiding something. But he's not alone. There's someone else. Someone doing the dirty work. Cora, let's take it step by step. Where have you been the last 2 days? Hiding. In a trailer a friend of mine rented. He's off fishing, and I just stayed there. Last night, the trailer burned down. Completely. I barely got out through the window. Someone wanted me gone. I pulled out the note she'd left at the motel before disappearing and showed it to her. You wrote this? She nodded. I didn't know who to trust. But you're different. You're not like the others. You're not after gold, you're after the truth. And you? I came here because of my father. I tensed. What? Jim Collins, the one who disappeared in the mine in 1972. He was my dad. The silence hung between us like smoke. I tried to process it. Why didn't you say so from the start? Because no one would have believed me. Because he was listed as unattached. No heirs. I was born after from his common-law wife. He went to the mine and vanished. Mom always said Henderson was hiding something. You want to find the gold? I want to find him, or at least understand why he died. I sat on the edge of the bed. Cora, did anyone know you were connected to Collins? Only Joe Tillman. He knew my dad. He's the one who told me Henderson had found the mine. I met with him, asked where the entrance was. He was alive when I left. I swear. After that, he was killed. She froze. You think I did it? I think you're the key, not to the gold, to why this all started. 20 minutes later, the 3 of us were driving me, Max and Cora. She sat in the back, head down, like she was on her way to confession. Max still didn't trust her. I almost didn't either. But something in her story didn't fit the profile of a killer. Yet it fit perfectly as a motive. The daughter of a miner who vanished in a cursed shaft, where now people were dying. This wasn't a legend anymore. This was a family reckoning. Where are we going? Max asked. I remembered an old recording, I said. It wasn't on the laptop, but it was mentioned in Henderson's journal. He kept a diary on tape-sold VHS at Mabel's place. Does Mabel know about the tape? Number, but she's got an old player and a box of Walter's things. Mabel wasn't thrilled about our late-night visit, but when she saw Cora, she paled. She recognized her, stared for a long moment, then let us in without a word. You're that girl, she said. I remember. Your mom came by, years ago, begged Walter to admit Jim didn't just disappear. What did he say? Nothing. He stayed quiet, like always when he was scared. We found the box quickly, dusty, filled with tapes and old papers. We popped in the first one. The tape hissed. A frame appeared. Henderson. Young, dirty, hands shaking. Bill died today. That's the second one. We went down to level 4. Thena flash. Some kind of gas? I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Jim's not responding. I hear rustling. I swear someone was there. The next scene shaky footage. Inside the mine, suddenly a silhouette in black walking toward the camera. The camera drops. Static. A noise. End of tape. Who was that? Cora whispered. I shook my head. I think it's the same person who burned Joe's camp. The one who's after you. Someone who knows the mine better than we do. A double, Max said. Someone pretending to be someone else. The next morning, we got a call from the police. A remote spot outside town. A fire. A charred van. And inside a body. We drove out. The sand still smoked. The body was burned almost beyond recognition, but nearby a scorched jacket. It had a distinct button, silver, engraved. Guy H. Garrett Henderson. No way, Max breathed. We saw him yesterday, in person. I crouched by the remains. The body belonged to a man, judging by the build. But one detail stood out on the neck, a tattoo. Nothing like what Garrett had in his photos. Max, this isn't him, it's a decoy. What? Someone's been posing as Garrett, using his clothes to throw us off, while the real Garrett is either dead or playing a whole different game, Max finished. We exchanged a look. Cora stood off to the side, hand over her mouth. So someone's already hunting, and they're a pro. I picked up a piece of plastic from the ground, a burned access card, barely legible, but part of a name was visible. M.H. I stood slowly. Max. How many kids did Henderson have? One. Garrett. What if he had another? He froze. You think? I think Jim Collins had an enemy. I think Henderson knew it, and someone else was in that mine. Someone who didn't die, who came back, who's now trying to erase everyone tied to the past. Max was silent for a long moment. And you think we're next? I think we already are. I've always said, if you want the truth, be ready for it to hit you in the face. Sometimes with a fist, sometimes with an explosion. This time, it was the latter. After finding the burned decoy in Garrett's jacket with a piece of an access card, something clicked in my head. Someone was playing both sides. Someone was pretending to be Garrett. Someone was framing Cora. And someone wanted this over quickly, cleanly on paper. But we're not paper. We decided to go back to the mine. Yes, at night. Yes, again. Yes, it was reckless. But I had a gut feeling time was against us. That every minute, someone down there was burying another lead, burning evidence, or setting a trap. We were driving down a back road when Max said, "We're heading into a killer's den. No warrant, no backup, and with a girl we still can't fully clear. You good?" "No, Max. But luckily, we're not here to do things the good way. We're here to do them right." He snorted and checked his gun. I checked my flashlight. Cora stayed silent. She had the look of someone walking into a place where they'd once lost themselves. We found the mine entrance quickly. Too quickly. Someone had cleared it. Stones moved. Wire cut. And inside fresh tracks. "Someone's here." Or was, Max said, stepping forward. Gun at his hip. Cora stayed close to me, her hand trembling. She wasn't afraid of the dark, she was afraid of finding an answer she wasn't ready for. We went in. This time, it felt different. The flashlight beams glinted off something metallic. I approached. An old metal box. Empty, nearby a shovel, and on the wall graffiti. Not old, but fresh. Bright red paint, still wet. "They will all die underground. This isn't just obsession anymore," Max said. "This is a manifesto." We went another 20 yards. On the ground broken wood. An old door kicked in. And a strange smell. Burned plastic. Something chemical. "Back," I shouted. Too late. The explosion was muffled, like the earth coughing. The ceiling shook. Dust hit my face. Rocks rained down. Max was thrown back, Cora to the side. I dropped to my knees, pressing against the wall. A rumble. Then silence. Then Cora's rasping voice. Alex." I crawled to her. Alive. Scratched up. But okay. "Max?" A second later, he emerged from the dust cloud. Shirt torn, blood on his brow, but alive. "Someone knew we'd come," he hissed. "That was a mine. Or a charge." I looked around. The narrow passage behind us blocked. No way out. "We're trapped?" "Almost." I pointed ahead. "Unless we find another exit." We walked through the lower levels for 20 minutes. The flashlights flickered weakly, Cora's hand shook, and Max kept stopping to listen. Thin sound. Metal on metal. Footsteps. "Someone's coming," he whispered. "One person." We hid behind a support beam. I pulled Cora close. Max took the other side. A moment later, a figure stepped around the corner. A man. Black clothes. A flashlight. No mask. Around 40. Scars on his face. Quiet as a shadow. I didn't think. I lunged. We hit the ground. He fought like a pro quick, sharp. But Max got there first. Pinned him with a knee. Gun aimed. "Who are you?" He spat blood. "You're already dead, all of you. Shouldn't have come back." "Who sent you?" Silence. Max struck him. The man laughed. A raspy sound. "No one. I came myself. I've been waiting too long." "Waiting for what?" "For them to come back. For it to happen again." He suddenly slammed his fist into his chest. A click. I tore his shirt open a belt with a detonator. "Max." A second. And? Nothing. "Dud," Max exhaled. He wanted to scare us. But that meant one thing. He was ready to die. Which meant his convictions ran deeper than money. Who are you? Cora asked softly. He looked at her and froze. You're her daughter. Whose? Clarissa's. She was with Jim. I knew her. And you're the one. He coughed, then added hoarsely, Your father didn't die in a cave-in. He was killed for wanting to leave. Henderson was scared. Scared Jim would talk about the mine. He killed him? Number he ordered it. And Garrett was a kid then, but he saw, then forgot, or made himself forget. And you? He gave a bitter smile. I buried the body. We left him tied up and kept moving. 10 minutes later, we found an old emergency tunnel. With effort, lungs full of dust, we made it out. Outside night, a clear starry sky, and a silence that made you want to scream. Max wiped his face. We almost died. Welcome to my life, I said, glancing at Cora. She stood off to the side. Tears. Real ones. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know it was this. Your dad wanted to leave. That tells me he was a good man, I said. That's what matters. Back in town, we headed straight to the station. Max uploaded the data, ran the access card, a match. Name, Martin Hale, former Henderson mining security guard, fired in 1990, involved in the 1972 incident. There's our mine fanatic, Max said. But not the killer, I added. He's barely tied to the recent deaths. He's just a link. Someone else is pulling the strings. Garrett? Or someone pretending to be him. Or someone we haven't seen yet. Max sighed. What now? I lit a cigarette. We round up everyone left who's connected to this, and do what I do best. And unmasking? Some clues scream, some whisper, some stay silent like the dead, but even the dead have something to say, especially if you look under their nails. Morning started with coffee and reports. Max sat at the computer, combing through a list of everyone ever connected to shaft number 17. The list was longer than we'd hoped. Old guards, former drillers, engineers, archivists, and almost everyone had either a stroke, a disappearance, or an early death. Something was definitely in that mine. The question was what? Cora sat in the corner, wrapped in a blanket. No makeup, no pretense. Now she was just a person who lost her father and found too much truth. I stared into my empty mug, thinking about Martin Hale. We left him under police watch. But his words, I buried the body, still haunted me, and his voice trembled not from fear, from regret. I also thought about the body in the van burned, but wearing Garrett's jacket, and a phrase I'd almost missed that day, you're her daughter. It was said with pain, not accusation. That meant someone knew Cora long before she showed up, which meant this story started much earlier than we thought. Everything changed when they brought a body to the station from the morgue. Male, around 50, found in the desert near an old quarry. The police assumed he was a drifter, but the report had an odd detail. Under the right hand fingernail, a piece of paper lodged in the skin. What's this? Max asked. A surprise, I said. We examined the body. Sure enough, under the nail was a tiny, charred, but legible scrap. I took tweezers, carefully pulled it out, and held it under the lamp. Words written in a shaky hand. They're coming. The map is with the woman. Don't trust. It cut off there. Max cursed quietly. He was trying to warn someone, but who? Maybe us. Maybe Cora. I turned to her. She stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. I didn't know he was alive. I thought, her voice broke. That was Jerry, my dad's friend. He looked after Mom, after Dad disappeared. Then he left, for good. He came back to say something and died. Max frowned. What if he didn't die by accident? What if someone planted him there so we wouldn't find out in time? I nodded. It's all coming together. Someone systematically eliminating everyone who knows the truth. Someone who really doesn't want that truth to reach the living. We called everyone in. This wasn't a trial or a show. It was a reckoning, minor style, rough in an old hangar near the abandoned Henderson Mining Company admin building. Not everyone showed. Some couldn't, some wouldn't, some were already in the ground. But in the room were those who knew. Garrett Henderson, alive and well, surprisingly. Cora Blaine, Martin Hale under guard, and Becky Lawson Henderson's former nurse, and incidentally, his mistress in his final years. Max and I stood in the center. I started. This story began with a map, a so-called lost mine, but really it began with betrayal. Jim Collins Cora's father knew the truth. He knew shaft number. 17 wasn't just a mine. There were experiments down there, not just a cave-in, but a deliberate explosion to cover up a crime. Garrett snorted. And you're going to prove all this, of course? I pulled out a tablet, played the video, the clip from Henderson's camera where you hear screams. Then, he killed Jim. I couldn't stop it. He was talking about you, Garrett. I was 12, he shouted. You serious? Exactly. And you were at the mine. You knew. You saw Henderson give the order. Or maybe you saw someone carry it out. I scanned the others. Martin? Hale stayed silent. Becky? I just treated his wounds, she said. He'd come at night, said his hands were covered in blood, but I thought it was just a figure of speech. Max stepped forward, and we found the map, the full one, on a guard killed at a motel a week ago, and it had your fingerprint on it, Garrett. He froze. I'm not involved. That's a setup. Maybe, but here's the thing, I said, pulling out a photo. There's a little detail. The photo, the burned jacket, the body in the van, and a close-up of the tattoo. That tattoo belonged to Rick Henley, your bodyguard. His DNA matched the body, which means you're alive, and he's dead. That's not. You used him to disappear, wanted everyone to think you were dead, then slip into the shadows and take the gold. That's insane. Insane is killing people over a mine that doesn't even have gold anymore. A heavy pause, like a slab of stone. Cora stood. Did you kill my father? Garrett met her eyes, and for the first time, he didn't answer. Silence is an answer too. When they took him away, he didn't scream. He just looked at me, calmly, almost with respect. You're not just a cop. I'm not a cop. I'm the guy who doesn't close a case until I know the whole truth. He smirked. You sure you're not a Henderson? Later, Max and I sat at an old bar in the center of town. He drank whiskey. I had lemon water. Cora was gone. She said she wanted to head east, start fresh. I don't believe in clean slates. Everyone's got marks. But sometimes those marks are what keep us alive. Max said, I thought this would be a story about gold. Turns out it was about fear. Fear, memory, the fact that the dead don't stay silent. You just have to know how to listen. Night settled over the town, and we stayed where it all began, in a place where the sand whispers, where gold is dust, and the mind is just a mirror. I've always said the end isn't a period, it's a mirror. It shows you not just the truth, but who you became while chasing it. 3 days had passed since we exposed Garrett Henderson. He sat in custody, silent, refusing statements and lawyers. But I didn't believe it was over. Not because I'm paranoid, because something didn't add up. Cora had disappeared. She'd said she was leaving, but she hadn't. Not at any airport, not on the highway, not at any bus station in the great state of Arizona. Max wasn't surprised. I was. Maybe she just wanted to vanish, he suggested. The girl went through hell, found her dad's killer. Now she wants peace. Not everyone's like you, running back into the mine. Maybe. But I've got a rule. If something feels finished, dig deeper. And what do you suggest? We go back to the mine one more time. You've lost it. Long ago, but you're still coming. Max rolled his eyes and started gathering flashlights. I don't believe in clean slates. Everyone's got marks. But sometimes, those marks are what keep us alive. Max said, I thought this would be a story about gold. Turns out it was about fear. Fear, memory, the fact that the dead don't stay silent. You just have to know how to listen. Night settled over the town, and we stayed where it all began, in a place where the sand whispers, where gold is dust, and the mind is just a mirror. I've always said the end isn't a period, it's a mirror. It shows you not just the truth, but who you became while chasing it. 3 days had passed since we exposed Garrett Henderson. He sat in custody, silent, refusing statements and lawyers. But I didn't believe it was over. Not because I'm paranoid, because something didn't add up. Cora had disappeared. She'd said she was leaving, but she hadn't. Not at any airport, not on the highway, not at any bus station in the great state of Arizona. Max wasn't surprised. I was. Maybe she just wanted to vanish, he suggested. The girl went through hell, found her dad's killer. Now she wants peace. Not everyone's like you, running back into the mine. Maybe. But I've got a rule. If something feels finished, dig deeper. And what do you suggest? We go back to the mine one more time. You've lost it. Long ago, but you're still coming. Max rolled his eyes and started gathering flashlights. Since then, she comes in my dreams. The mine, the dust, the scream. Be quiet, Jared. Don't tell. But now they're looking. Riley, Max, the girl. I can't stay silent anymore. I hit pause. Max exhaled slowly. Who's Jared? You know him, Cora said. He works in the archives, Henderson's company, officially a historian, really the company's silent shadow. And then I remembered. The quiet guy who met us at the museum on the first day. Glasses, tablet, mumbling about company policy. I hadn't even written down his name. And he was killing. He knew the whole time. He guarded the maps. He killed Joe. He burned the camp, wanted to take out Garrett. And me? Cora's voice shook. He wanted to end it, so no one would know. Max sat beside her. Where is he now? I don't know. He came here 2 days ago. I hid. He was talking to himself, screaming, crying. Then he left. But I think he'll come back. He always does. I stood, walked to the exit, and said, we need to stop this. Not for the police. Not for a check mark. For her. Max nodded, shrugged. How? We give him a finale. His style. A day later, we gathered everyone again in the same hangar. Everyone left. I sent the invitation myself. Through the town administration, the wording was simple. Final meeting on the shaft number, 17 case. Attendance mandatory. He came, polite, with a notepad. Same expression, like he was a background character, not the man who killed 3 people. I stood in front of him. Jared, yes? You know they found a body in the mine? He froze. Whose? Jim Collins. Bone fragments, a dental crown. DNA match. We checked. Silence. Then, quietly. And they also found a tape with your confession. Now he looked at me. No fear, no horror, just tired. So, it's over. It's over. Can I say one thing? I nodded. He looked at the room, at Cora, then at me. I didn't mean to. At first, he was good. But if he'd left it, would have all come out. And I wanted things to stay as they were, for the mind to die with the past. But it didn't die. It lives, as long as someone remembers. And now, he smiled, quietly, almost sadly. Now you'll close it, right? Forever. He raised his hands. Max cuffed him. 2 days later, shaft number 17 was sealed, welded shut. The land above it bought out and declared a restricted zone. Max and I stood on a hill, watching them lay the final block. You think he'll repent? Doubt it. And Cora, she said she's staying in town, wants to open a library for history, not the company's, the people's. Max smiled. You know we'll stumble into some new mess in a week, right? Of course, but for now quiet. We parted ways. The sun rose slowly, like it was afraid to touch this ground. And the mine stayed silent. Forever. There's gold you can touch and gots, coins, glittering veins and rock. And then there's the other kind, the kind people die for without ever seeing. The kind that turns the living into ghosts. The kind that smells not of metal, but of ash. 3 weeks passed. Shaft number 17 was sealed. Officially, due to a technical hazard. Unofficially, because no one wanted to know what was beneath it anymore. Not the town. Not the investors. Not the survivors. I was still in Jefferson Hills. Max had left for a few days to see family. He said, I need to remember people can be normal. Cora stayed. She opened a small bookstore. The sign was simple, voice beneath the ground. I helped hammer in the nails. People will think it's a metaphor, she said. Let them. Only you'll know where the name really comes from. We didn't talk about her father, didn't talk about Jared, about Garrett, about the mine, because those weren't names, they were wounds. I tried to leave. Thought I'd close the case, get in the car, play some old tunes, and drive into the sunset, like the genre demands. But every time I got out of bed, it felt like the sand was gripping my ankles. This town took something, and gave something back. One morning, I woke up in my motel room and realized, if I left now, without saying anything, it'd be right. But if I stay one more day, it'd be human. I stayed. Garrett Henderson stayed behind bars. His crime wasn't murder, it was silence. He knew who killed Jim Collins. Knew the mine wasn't for extraction, but for experiments. And he stayed quiet, because it was convenient, because wealth loves silence. He was charged with concealing evidence falsifying documents and orchestrating the cover-up of bodies. He'll be in for a long time, not for what he did, for what he allowed. Jared's case was simpler. He faced trial, confessed everything, calmly, no excuses, like he wanted it to be over. Was there gold? The judge asked him. He answered, yes, some. But that's not what killed. People chose what they'd kill for. And me, I stayed another day. And then I stopped by Cora's. She was working in the shop shelving books, dusting. You've got a reader, I said. I'll even sign up for a membership. I've got a memory, she replied. That's more important. I scanned the shelves. On One Miner's helmet, rusty, dented. Why? So no one forgets that gold sometimes comes with blood. That night, I went to the mine, just to stand there. No goal, no report. It was quiet. The smell of sand, the rustle of wind. The moon shone directly on the entrance, now sealed with concrete slabs. Someone had left a lamp nearby, extinguished. I lit it and placed an old coin beside it. One Max had found near the entrance long ago. You wanted gold, Jim? I said aloud. Or just the truth? Back in town, I walked the streets. People lived, baked rolls, mowed lawns, argued about taxes. No one spoke of the mine anymore, not even in whispers. Silence is the best cement for old tragedies. Max returned the next day, smiling a bit more than usual. Still in town? Still. We've got a new case in Denver. Murder with a touch of elegance. Elderly lady. Poisoning at an auction. Sounds good. He looked at me. And this? This'll stay with me, like everything else. As we drove off, I glanced back at Cora's sign. Voice beneath the ground. And realized it wasn't about the mine. It was about those we bury inside ourselves. The voices that won't let us forget. The ones whose truth was buried too deep. But we dug it up, and now we could leave. Empire under the clatter of wheels. Every train has a final station. Every murder has its own timetable. And this time, both were damn punctual. I don't like trains. Too many people, too few exits. But I owed a favor to an old friend, Gerald Lang, a banker with the face of a salmon and a taste for luxury. He invited me aboard the Imperial Belle, the elite express from Paris to Venice. The kind of train where they serve oysters for breakfast and your compartment has more space than your apartment. The train departed at dusk, and the platform buzzed with an atmosphere of expensive perfume, camera flashes, and faux aristocratic smiles. Those who weren't born rich pretended they were. The rest acted like they were already bored of it all. My compartment was next to some noisy Italians and diagonally across from her car. Catherine Mayville, 29, heiress to the Mayville's Gems jewelry empire. A woman with a necklace around her throat, worth a country estate, and a sense of humor as dry as a tax auditor's process. I didn't know her personally, but I knew the stories. About her marriage to a broker who now loses more at cards than he gains on the stock market. About her plan to auction off the family heirloom, the blood of the orchid necklace, in Venice, and about how she despised that necklace. I don't need ancestral ghosts, Alex, she told me later over dinner when we finally got to talking. I'm not a museum. I'm the future. I'll be honest, she was sharp. But there was something real about her. The brutal honesty of a rich person who doesn't quite believe in their own wealth. In the first dining car, everyone gathered for a welcome dinner. Gerald chewed his duck like he wanted to send it back to the pond. At a nearby table, I noticed a young maid with fear-filled eyes, Grace, they called her. She kept looking around. In another corner sat Catherine's husband, Justin, and he looked too calm. Trust me, that's always a bad sign. The train started moving, and with it, so did this story. That night, I woke to a scream. A woman's voice from the compartment across Mayville's compartment. I rushed into the corridor. The lights flickered. Silence cut like a blade. When the door opened, Catherine was already dead. The necklace was gone. And the train kept rolling on rails leading not just to Venice, but straight into a murder. I've seen hundreds of corpses, but dead women with perfect makeup always give the worst kind of feeling, because someone worked hard to make them look not dead. Catherine lay on the side berth as if she'd fallen asleep after a long day. Only her lips were paler than usual, and her fingers were clenched oddly as if they'd been holding something or pushing someone away. Her neck was bare. No chain, no trace. On the bedside table, a glass of wine, untouched, and strangely heart pills lay nearby, but the packet was unopened. I leaned closer. Under her nail, a microscopic fleck of gold dust. The corner of the tablecloth was torn, and her right shoe had slipped off slightly, as if she hadn't taken it off herself, but someone had moved her. I knew if this were suicide or a heart attack, things would look far messier. But this was like a display window. Someone had tried to craft a beautiful death, almost theatrical. I called the conductor, told him to seal off the car. Max, as usual, showed up late with a cigarette he wasn't supposed to smoke on a train. Murder? He asked, glancing at the body. No, a masquerade, I grumbled, and a poorly directed one. The suspects began to reveal themselves. Justin Mayville husband, he sat in his compartment, sipping brandy and rereading a newspaper. We barely spoke these last few days, he said. She had her business, the necklace, the auction, old scores. Did you know she planned to donate the proceeds to a museum? And honestly, I don't care. He took a sip. I didn't kill her. I just didn't love her as much as I promised. Cold-blooded. Frighteningly cold-blooded. But not a killer. It didn't feel like it. Grace Wintermaid. I didn't hear anything. I was asleep. Her voice trembled, but not falsely. Got someone on this train, Grace? I asked. Her eyes widened. A pause. Too long. No. But I already knew she had someone. And under her nail there were sparkles too. The same gold dust. Leo Riviere lover, not yet revealed, traveling under a false name. He sat in a compartment under the name Paul Berger, claiming to be a jewelry historian. He spoke softly, moved even quieter, the invisible type, but on his boots a faint scratch from the doorframe of Catherine's compartment. Madame Belanger companion. Poor girl, I warned her not to trust people with smiles. Did you trust her yourself? I carried her damn necklace for 10 years. I earned the right to be trusted. Stones, masks, and mirrors. Never trust a woman with trembling hands unless she's a jeweler. In this case, everyone was hiding something. But a lie is like a fake gem. It sparkles until it cracks under pressure. Morning on the train began not with coffee, but with a hunt. I woke to a faint clink metal against metal. In the corridor, near the rear car, I caught Grace bending down, as if searching for an earring. "What'd you drop?" I asked. She flinched. "Nothing, just adjusting a tablecloth. Dust." But between her fingers, I spotted a tiny fragmented piece of a chain's clasp. Broken, not cut, as if torn off in a hurry. Back in Catherine's compartment, I started over. I noticed the chair's upholstery, overlooked in the dark. On it, a faint imprint of a ring. Large, heavy, with a square head. Not Catherine's ring. But whose? I walked the train and found it. On Paul Berger, my quiet jewelry historian, was the very ring. Heavy, worn, a true craftsman's signet. "Nice ring," I said. "Where'd you get it?" "Heirloom," he replied. "From my father." "Oh, sure, like family jewels. Except yours has an engraving from a workshop that closed 10 years ago." I checked. He knew he'd slipped. His lips tightened. "Who are you, really?" "Leo Riviere," he said, eyes down. "Jeweler and Grace's husband, unofficially. She worked for Catherine, and I was supposed to photograph the necklace to make a replica. She just wanted us to get out of debt, but..." He faltered. "We didn't mean to kill her." And then it all clicked. Catherine caught Grace trying to photograph the necklace. She threatened to fire her, maybe even turn her in to the police. Leo swapped the necklace for a replica and returned it. But Catherine noticed the difference. The real clasp was colder. She was sensitive to it. Late that night, she took off the necklace to inspect it and found Leo in her compartment. He panicked. A struggle ensued. He didn't mean to kill her, but he grabbed her throat and squeezed too hard. Later, he and Grace agreed. Stage a natural death. Hide the necklace in the luggage. And escape before Venice at the Verona station. But one detail ruined it all. Grace forgot to wipe the gold dust from her hands when she adjusted the blanket and left a trace. "Alex Riley, you found the necklace. You saw the swap, the motive money. But the real mistake wasn't yours, Leo. It was your wife's when she let her real tears betray her. Because on this train, everyone was playing a part, but she was living." Some clues hide in plain sight. Others in the soft lining of a suitcase, among underwear, socks, and other people's stories. And then there are those that hide not because they're concealed, but because no one thinks to look there. Grace held strong. Even when Max led her to the service car for questioning, she sat upright, answered evenly. No tears, no hysterics, only her eyes darted. I decided to check her luggage. She protested, of course. "I didn't give permission, that's illegal." "And murder," Max replied, "is even more illegal. So, sorry." An ordinary suitcase. Plastic, burgundy, with scratches on the side. Looked like half the passengers' bags on this train. Inside the dress, a spare uniform, a makeup bag. Everything folded impeccably, almost obsessively. But at the bottom, "Max, get me a knife." He understood instantly. In the suitcase's false bottom case, wooden, embossed with an orchid, Catherine's signature. This was the case for the blood of the orchid, the necklace at the heart of this whole farce. Max slowly lifted the lid. There lay the necklace, or something that looked like it. Sapphires, diamonds, the same design. At first glance impossible to fake, but I knew. The original had one flower tiny chip on the central stone. They never fixed it. a family superstition Catherine refused to repair. I looked closer. No chip. Fake, I said. Very precise, almost perfect, but too clean. Inside the case was a piece of paper. A handwritten note. The necklace is ready. Train 11:43. I'll handle everything. Just keep her away from the wardrobe. Don't be afraid. It's safe. No one will get hurt. L. Nice try, Leo. But you didn't account for one thing. Not everyone's conscience is ready for your plans. I searched her belongings further. Found something else. An old business card from a jewelry workshop. On the back a barcode. Modern, like an online order. I handed everything to Max. Trace who placed the order and where it was made. I'm sure it's the replica. Max nodded, no questions asked. He had his talents like finding data even when the train's Wi-Fi worked worse than a thief's conscience. I was heading back when I ran into Viscountess Dalver, the one who'd been complaining about disorder among the staff the whole trip. Monsieur Riley, my earrings are missing. When? Last night. I'm sure it was Grace. She had envious eyes. Envious, maybe. But the earrings, as it turned out later, she simply dropped in her compartment while removing a scarf. Max found them under the couch. Alex Riley. +1 false lead, -10 minutes of sleep. In Leo's compartment, I found the real clue. Inside his suit, a small box of jeweler's tools, tweezers, a loop, a graver, and a stone. One. Alone. The central sapphire. The real one. With the chip. I stared at it for a long time. It lay in a velvet cloth, like a heart torn from a queen. This wasn't just a stone. It was a confession. He didn't want to sell the original. He wanted to swap it and keep the real one for himself. Because real things don't hold wealth, they hold power. Especially if you're a fire jeweler with pride teetering on the edge of crime. Grace sat on the couch in the interrogation compartment. When I walked in, she didn't look up. He didn't mean to kill her, she said immediately. I swear. But he did, I replied. And you helped him hide the necklace. I just wanted to get out. He promised it would be quick. No harm. Just the necklace, the auction, the money. But Catherine wasn't just your employer. You knew her since childhood, didn't you? She nodded. Tears like they were late to the party. She was kind, but she didn't forgive. If she found out, she'd have put you both behind bars, I finished, and that's no excuse. Max returned closer to evening. The cards from Bolu et Fils. They specialize in museum replicas. And the order was placed through a dummy account, coincidentally in the day Grace flew out. It all lined up. The necklace, the stone, the note, the workshop, and a hallway camera showing Catherine's door opening twice late at night. One silhouette was unmistakably male. In Leo's coat, the puzzle was coming together. But I knew, before gathering everyone in the dining car for the final act, I needed to wait for one of them to break. And that moment was already steaming toward me on the rails. The art of forgery isn't about hands. It's about spine. You don't just create a copy. You convince yourself you deserve the original. And if you're willing to kill for it, you're no jeweler. You're a thief in an artist suit. Leo Riviere sat in his compartment like it was a prison cell. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, just sat staring at one point. The kind of man who had dreams until they became evidence. I walked in, closed the door behind me. Let's start simple. Why didn't you run? He smirked. Where to? A train, cameras, Interrogations. I'm not an idiot. Number. You're worse. You're convinced you did everything right. Silence. I just wanted to break free. Me and Grace, everything was falling apart. Debts, unemployment. So you decided to rob her? I sat across from him. The woman who fed you from her hand? We only wanted the necklace. Just that, he flared. I made a perfect replica. So good even the auctioneers wouldn't have noticed. Except for one thing. I pulled the sapphire from my pocket. Your pride. Your sin. You kept the real stone because you wanted to prove I'm better than them all. He looked at the stone like it was a dead friend. I didn't kill her. No. Then why does the wine glass have fingerprints with micro scratches matching your graver? She, don't lie. Meanwhile, Max rushed in with news. Grace, she escaped. What do you mean escaped? Used the moment when the guard was taking her to the dining car. Knocked him down, locked him in the bathroom, climbed out through a service tunnel between cars. Where'd she go? We think the luggage compartment. Her suitcase is there and maybe a plan B. The train was slowing, soon we hit a stop at Murano. Panoramic windows revealed the Alps, but I felt like we were riding through a trap. I found Grace on the train's rear platform. She changed into first-class passenger clothes. Wig, glasses. On her Lapa backpack, inside cash, a passport under a false name, and another copy of the necklace. Again, she wanted to escape with a copy of a copy. Theft is like a disease. You get used to it, even if you're no good at it. It's over, I said. Number. It's not over. I love him. He didn't mean to. He killed her, Grace. For a stone, for an idea. She closed her eyes. I just wanted him to be who he used to be. And he became a murderer with a ring. Great trade. We returned to the car. Then something else strange happened. Justin, Catherine's husband, suddenly approached Max and said, I want to confess. To what? Max asked. I killed her. I strangled Catherine. For the money, for the necklace, for everything. It was me. Max reported it to me immediately. The three of us sat in the dining car's meeting area. I looked at Justine. He was cold, not even trembling. Seriously? You killed your wife? Yes. And what were you doing in your compartment at the time? Drinking brandy, before and after. And saw her die? Yes. Strange. Because I pulled out a tablet. The camera shows you never left your compartment. Not once. He didn't answer. Know the problem with bad liars? What? They want to be caught. You're covering for someone. Max leaned toward me. Think he loves Grace? Number, I think he's scared. Scared that if she talks, he'll lose even the illusion of a life. An empty husband without a necklace, without a wife, without purpose. I stepped out of the compartment. Outside the window a tunnel. On my face light from a lamp. In my head readiness for the finale. Everyone was in place. The clues were gathered. The stage was set. Time to call the actors to the scene. Every murder has a reflection. A reflection of the killer. A reflection of those who knew and those who stayed silent. All you need to do is place the mirror in the right spot. The dining car was nearly empty when I gathered them all. The place for coffee, wine, and posturing had become a courtroom. I stood at the end of the long table. Grace, Leo, Justin, Madame Belanger, Victor Cranial sat, some with haughty boredom, some with panic in their eyes, some just exhausted. Max stood by the exit, in case someone decided to step out for a smoke forever. I began. Madame Catherine Mayville was murdered in her compartment 3 nights ago. At first glancia, natural death, heart failure. But that's a lie. Pause. No one interrupts. There was no alcohol in her glass, though she always drank red before bed. Her heart pills were unopened, though she had an attack. On her wrist a trace of fingers, and on her nails gold dust. And finally, her necklace vanished. But it turned out to be a fake. I placed the case with the replica on the table. This is a forgery, crafted with talent but soulless, like the plan behind this murder. Leo lurched forward. We didn't mean to kill her, but you did. I didn't raise my voice. And now which of you will tell me what role you played in this performance? Breaking down the roles. Victor Crane, art dealer. You leaked information about the jewel. Helped list the necklace for auction, knowing it could be stolen. Got your cut, or a promise from Leo, right? I didn't know it would lead to murder, he muttered. Of course. Who plans a corpse for dinner? Madame Belanger? You knew something was up. Saw Gray sneaking around at night, but stayed silent. Why? I don't meddle in others' games, she replied. I'm tired of playing nanny. But for your silence, you get a pension stained with blood. Congratulations. Justin Mayville, you knew your wife didn't love you, that she was leaving, that her will had changed. But you didn't kill her. You gave up. Then you confessed not out of guilt but fear. And you know what's worse? I leaned toward him. You didn't even try to stop her. He lowered his head. No comment. Grace and Leo. I paused. You had everything. Access, a plan, a motive. Grace Catherine's childhood friend. Leoa, master jeweler. Together, you devised the theft. Leo made a replica, swapped the stone. Grace, distracted, picked the moment, but Catherine was too smart. She noticed the difference. She understood, and then panic kicked in. Leo clenched his fists. I didn't want to kill her, she screamed. Said she'd turn us into the police. I just wanted her to be quiet. And she stayed quiet forever, I replied. Final clues. The hallway camera caught 2 entries to Catherine's compartment, one at 114 Grace, the second at 127 Leo. In that window, she realized the jewel was fake. And when he entered, a struggle began. She wasn't beaten, just strangled, carefully, slowly. The way you strangle someone you pity but don't forgive. I took one last step, pulled the chipped sapphire from my pocket. This is the key. You kept it, Leo. Not because it's valuable, but because you wanted to be the best. Even if it meant becoming the worst. Silence. Grace sobbed. Leo buried his face in his hands. Max stepped forward. Leo Riviere, Grace Winter. You're under arrest for the murder of Catherine Mayville and attempted jewel theft. And so, as the necklace returned to its case, and the killer to reality, I realized even the finest replica will never replace the original. And the most calculated lie won't withstand a glance through the mirror. The train arrived, but the people didn't. Some got off early, some stayed on the journey, and some just stepped off at the wrong station where truth was waiting. Venice, 11:46 a.m. The train glided onto the platform as if reluctant to stop. The hum of brakes, a piercing screech of metal land, then silence. Passengers hurried to gather suitcases, touch up makeup, pretend it was just another trip, that no one had died, that there was no murder, that this was just a train. But not for me. Leo and Grace were led out in handcuffs. She walked with her head down, unresisting. He, on the other hand, eyes forward, chin high, as if still hoping his genius would earn forgiveness. Except genius that kills a woman is just a master murderer. Max stood beside me, nervously chewing gum. Hell of a ride, huh? He smirked. Well, at least the food was good, I replied. He nodded toward Justin, who stood alone by the last car, staring into nothing. What about him? Nothing. He's not a killer. But he's a witness to a crime and his own mistakes. That's enough for a lifetime. Max pondered. You know, he's not that bad. Yeah, just became not bad too late. We walked along the platform. Local authorities were already waiting. I handed over the papers, the evidence, and briefly explained the details. Max went to coordinate translators. I was left alone. And there it was, Venice, a city where stones are older than most family dynasties, where everything is built on illusion, houses on water, masks, names, the perfect place to hide the truth, or to speak it. I sat on a bench across from the station. In my hand saw a cup of strong Italian coffee. In my head, everything that had happened. Catherine wanted to shed her past. The family necklace, the marriage, the mask of heiress, but her past was too clingy. You can't sell it at auction. You can't pack it in velvet. You can only live through it or die from it. Max returned, Saturday beside me. Leaving? In an hour, plane ticket. Want to take another train ride? He grinned. Only if there are no corpses in the compartments, or at least good wine. He fell silent. Listen, did you know right away it wasn't Justin? Of course. Why? Because when he said he killed her, he didn't tremble. But when I said she didn't die instantly, he flinched. Max nodded. And Grace? No one cries that sincerely unless they regret it. And real guilt-it's always in the tears, not in the confession. We walked to the edge of the lagoon. Gondolas swayed like cats in the sun. In the crowd of tourist faces, cameras, laughter, no one knew that murderers had just been let out from the other end of the platform. And, as always, everything looked normal. Because evil never shouts. It whispers and makes copies. I pulled out my notebook, wrote, an empire can be built on stones, but it crumbles because of people. And if you ask me what justice is, I won't say the law. I'll say when the fake fades and the original remains, even if only in memory. The train left, but I stayed. Because someone has to look in the mirror and not turn away. The end.